Krishna, good morning. Well, today we are going to read from the third canto entitled Status Quo, from chapter 5 entitled Vidura's Talk with Maitreya, and we're on text 21. 3:5:21. Srimad Bhagavatam. And
is it 20 or 21?
Oh, 20. You're correct. Dear Govinda just rectified me. It's text 20, not 21. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim sarasvatim vyasam tato jayamudirayat. For reciting with Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a very medicinal conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead, Narayan, unto Narayana, she is the supermost human being, unto Mother Sarasvati, the goddess of learning, and unto the author Srila Vyasadeva. Hare Krishna. So we can go one Sanskrit word at a time. Mandavya,
Mandavya,
Shapat,
Shapad,
Bhagavan,
Bhagavan,
Praja,
Praja,
Samyamana,
Samyamana,
Yama,
Yama,
Pratu,
Pratu,
Kshetre,
Kshetre,
Bhujishyayam,
Ujishayam,
Jata,
Jata,
Satyavati,
Satyavati,
Sutat,
Sutat,
Mandavya Shapat Bhagavan,
Mandavya Shapad Bhagavan,
Praja Samya Mano Yama,
Raja Samya Manoyama,
Pratu Kshetre Bhujishyayam,
Pratu Kshetre Bhujishayam,
Jata Satyavati Sutat,
Jata Satyavati Sutat,
Mandavya Shapat Bhagavan,
Mandavya Shapat Bhagavan,
Raja Samyo Mano Yamaha,
Raja Samya Manoyama,
Pratu Kshetre Bhujishyayam,
Pratu Kshetre Bhujishayam,
Jata Satyavati Sutat,
Jata Satyavati Sutat,
Mandavya Shapat Bhagavan,
Mandavya Sapat Bhagavan,
Raja Samyo Mano Yamaha,
Raja Samya Manoyamaha,
Pratu Kshetre Bhujishyayam,
Bratu Kshetre Bhujishayam,
Jadya Satyavati Sutat,
Jata Satyavati Sutat, Mandavya Sapat Bhagavan,
Mandavya Shapat Bhagavan,
Raja Samya Manoyama,
Raja Samya Mano Yamaha,
Bratu Kshetre Bhujishayam,
Pratu Kshetre Bhujishyayam,
Jata Satyavati Sutat,
Jata Satyavati Sutat. Someone online would like to chant? Okay, so we are going to the transliteration, went forward. Mandavya,
Mandavya,
the great Rishi Mandavya Muni,
the great Rishi Mandavya Muni,
Shapat,
Shapat,
by his curse,
by his curse,
Bhagavan,
Bhagavan,
the greatly powerful,
the greatly powerful,
Praja,
Praja,
one who is born,
one who is born,
Samyamana,
Samyamana,
controller of death,
controller of death,
Yama,
Yama,
known as Yamaraj,
known as Yamaraj,
Bratu, of the brother, Kshetre,
Kshetre,
in the wife, Bhujishyayam,
Bhujishayam,
kept,
Jata,
born, Satyavati, the mother of both Vichitravirya and Vyasadeva,
the mother of both Vichitravirya and Vyasadeva,
Sutat,
Sutat,
by the son Vyasadev.
by the son Vyasadeva.
Okay, so today we are a small group, so here is what I'm suggesting. So Parikshit Maharaj is hearing from Sukadev Goswami, and every time he hears about a name or a story or something, he's just like, oh, you told me about this. Can you tell me more about that? So today, that's what I would like you to do. I'm going to read the verse and purport. And whatever question come up for you about what's happening or the philosophy or the storyline or what is that? I want you to have those questions, okay? And that verse and purport is very much like open to that. There is so many questions. When I read Bhagavatam, I have so many questions all the time. Every verse, so many questions. Every purport, so many questions. So after I read the verse and purport, I will jot down your question, and then we'll see where we go with it. Okay? Just something a little different. Translation. I know that you are now Vidura due to the cursing of Mandavya Muni, and that formerly you were King Yamaraj, the great controller of living entities after their death. You were begotten by the son of Satyavati, Vyasadev, in a kept wife of his brother. So much intrigue and gossip here. Okay, transcendental gossip. Purport. Mandavya Muni was a great sage. We can reference that to the Bhagavatam 1:13:1. And Vidura was formerly the controller Yamaraj, who took charge of the living entities after death. Birth, maintenance, and death are three conditioned states of the living entity while within the material world. As appointed controller after death, Yamaraj once tried Mandavya Muni for his childhood profligacy and ordered him to be pierced with a lance. Mandavya, being angry at Yamaraj for awarding him undue punishment, cursed him to become a Shudra, member of the less intelligent laborer class. Thus Yamaraj took birth in the womb of a kept wife of Vichitravirya, from the semen of Vichitravirya's brother Vyasadev. Vyasadev is the son of Satyavati by the great King Shantanu, the father of Bhishmadev. This mysterious history of Vidura was known to Maitreya Muni because he happened to be contemporary friend of Vyasadev's. In spite of Vidura's birth from the womb of a kept wife, because he had otherwise high parentage and great connection, he inherited the highest talent of becoming a great devotee of the Lord. To take birth in such a great family is understood to be an advantage for attaining devotional service. Vidura was giving this chance due to his previous greatness. I'm going to invoke auspiciousness in our conversation today, and by chanting our mantra at the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita. Om Gyanati Mirandasya Gyanajala Shalakaya Shakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Shtapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Upakadamayam Datati Swapadam Tikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavam Sha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sagana Ragunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saikta Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitam Cha E Krishna Karunat Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namosute Tapta Kamshana Gorange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Shri Vishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Yari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhya Cha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Tinamine Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvase Shashu Navadi Paskacha Dejatarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So I'm going to read the verse again, and I'm waiting for hearing your question coming out of those verses. Like Parikshit Maharaj, always he was asking, you told me about this one, can you tell me about that story? You hinted about that, like that, okay? I know that you're now Vidura due to the cursing of Mandavya Muni, and that formerly you were King Yamaraj, the great controller of living entities after their death. You were beckoning by the son of Satyavati, Vyasadeva, in the kept wife of his brother. So just want to say something is that at the beginning of the Bhagavatam, it said that we all ask questions. And I notice when people come together, they do have a lot of questions. They are so curious. What did you do with that? Speaking about other people, speaking about this and that, but there is so many questions. Where, who, where, when, all those questions. So we want, it's natural for us to always ask questions. So we want to train our mind to ask questions about transcendental subject matter and the pastime of the Lord with his devotees. So I'm ready. I have notebooks who have a question about the purport or like anything. What came up for you? Gauda Prabhu. I'm writing it down. I'm going to take all the questions now, and then I will share whatever I have to share, and then after we will have comment question at the end again. Okay, Gauda Prabhu.
Okay, thank you, Hare Krishna. So I'm just trying to understand this whole. So Yamaraj, I'm assuming is a position like the Brahmana or the like Lord Brahma's position, something like that. I'm just trying to understand, like, okay, so he used to be
that's
in this
one
position.
question.
Huh?
That's one question. I got your question. That you want to understand if it's a position. Do you have another question?
Yeah, I do. So I'm understanding that he once tried Mandavai, what I'm not saying that right, Muni for his childhood. What is that word? Profligacy? I don't know. I don't know what that word
I
is.
take it like a mistake.
Okay, so he kind of gave him a punishment that wasn't justified for his mistake. I guess that's what I'm understanding.
You will have to hear about that. What mistake did he make and why he was punished? Okay, that's a great topic.
Yeah, why did he make that mistake of his punishment? Did he not? Was he not educated enough to make just punishments? I'm just curious.
Yeah, that's very scary. That's very scary. Like I remember when I was in Kitanagari, I was really suffering a lot. And I was convinced someone made a mistake, that this doesn't belong to me. Someone made a mistake in the universe because I'm not supposed to be so miserable. Okay.
Yeah. So it's like going into trial and being, accused of something that you didn't do, and then you get, jail time or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah. So
we will read what Prabhupada say about it. I'm ready for that. Any other question?
My last one was like, okay, what was the process and that he left his position and went to take birth? What is the mechanism that like brought him into the birth of Vidura?
Prabhupada will respond to your question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Someone else would like to what came up for you? It's so amazing of a verse and purpose, full of intrigue and strangeness and personalities and genealogy. genealogical table. That's how it's called.
Genealogy, and
Genealogy.
romance, and
Romance.
stuff.
So many things here.
Yeah, it's all
Like
good.
a father that asks someone else to beget his children. It's just
Yeah.
full of stuff. Like
His
the
Bible.
best gossip in the world are in that purport.
Yeah.
So, any other question? Something that came up for you. It's okay if it's stupid. You know, sometimes we have questions and we think, oh, it's a stupid question.
Yeah.
But there is no stupid question when it comes to Bhagavatam. What did you want to say?
The only stupid question is the question not asked.
Dear Govinda, if you didn't hear it, he said the only stupid question is the question not asked. Okay, we have a chat. I have a question coming from yesterday, Bhaktivinoda Thakur Day. Maybe we can keep that for the end, after we finish the class about this verse and purport. I'm very happy to respond, and we can keep it for the end. Someone else? Okay. Not very. I'm so curious when I read Bhagavatam. I'm so curious myself. I guess that's my nature, to be curious. I think my curiosity took me to Krishna consciousness. Yes.
Hare Krishna. I just wanted to say that it's just it's it's like a episode on Days of Our Lives or something, some kind of soap opera, but it goes into other like realms and dimensions. So it's like this really fantastic, like it would make a great mini series.
Yeah, for sure. It's so much in these purports, so much like of talk, so much talk. If I was saying that, like, to any one of those sentences, if I was saying them in a social gathering, okay, and speaking not about the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his associate, but speaking about someone in a village or someone in the town or someone in our community, I will get so many questions. I want to know that. Oh, what is about that? And what about this? And who was there? And when that happened? Anyway.
So Srila Vyasadeva, he's the greatest sage of all time. He's compiled all the Vedas. He revealed the Bhagavatam. What's he doing? What's he doing with Satyavati and the kept wife of his brother?
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah. Did you hear dear Govinda's question? He said, okay, Vyasadeva is a literary incarnation of God. What is he doing with the kept wife of his brother to have sex and have a baby from him? That's a good question. That's the kind of question that's naturally, if I was speaking about that happening, like, oh, this person, Patrick Magnum, yeah, he had a baby with the kept wife of his brother. Oh, so what? What's happening with Patrick? And what his brother must be so angry, isn't it? All those questions will come. Anyhow, any other questions? I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I don't want to make you uncomfortable. It's just an exercise. It's just to have fun. Yeah, it's a service. It's just to have fun and to also see how easily we can get into chit chat and speak about Gramya Kata, like this and that. But how more difficult it is to come up with question or to inquire or to be curious about the pastime of the Lord, about the Srimad Bhagavatam. And the Srimad Bhagavatam is so much more fulfilling than any of those Gramya Kata village talk. In fact, in ancient times, they didn't have TV. They didn't have internet. Imagine what a world without internet, without TV, without smartphone. And there was troops that were traveling from one village to another. They were nomads, and what they were doing, they were either reciting or playing the pastime of the Lord, the Ramayana, the Mahabharata. They were enacting that. So the village people, they will come together and that's what they will see. That's what they will talk about. Ramayana and the Mahabharata. And that's so much from the Mahabharata, part of those stories. So Mahabharata is full of intrigue and romance and gossip. Okay, so Garuda's question. So to answer Garuda's question, I'm going to go to the first canto, third volume, because Prabhupada answered the question there, and I have no reason to reinvent the wheel. And then there is so much there. So it's canto 1, chapter 13, and then Prabhupada quotes that because at the beginning of his purport, 13:1. So chapter 13 and first verse of the first canto. We can just go there and respond to Garuda. It's one of my favorite chapters in the first canto. Of course, I have so many favorite chapters. But anyway, so text 1 of chapter 13 of first canto. Sri Sutta Goswami said, while traveling on pilgrimage, so this is connected with our stories. That's why I'm reading it. Like it's directly what we are reading about is a meeting between Vidura and Maitreya. Vidura was on pilgrimage and he met Maitreya. And so here it's after Vidura's finished his conversation with Maitreya, he go back to Hastinapur. To see his family, to see the Pandavas, and mainly to go back to see his brother Dhritarashtra and to save him from the condition of birth and death. So that's we can see how the Bhagavad Psalms, the story told in the Bhagavad Psalms, they are not linear because we are in a third canto and we hear something that's already was spoken about in the first canto. So Sutta Goswami said, while traveling on a pilgrimage, Vidura received knowledge of the destination of the self from the great sage Maitreya, and then returned to Hastinapur. He became as well versed on the subject as he desired. And then Prabhupada, sometime in purport, he goes about describing the personality. Sometimes he has a verse, and instead of doing a purport, he says something about each personality inside the verse. So that's what he said. Vidura, colon. One of the prominent figures in the history of the Mahabharata. I love the Mahabharata. He was conceived by Vyasadeva in the womb of the maidservant Ambika, mother of Maharaj Pandu. So Ambika was the mother of Maharaj Pandu. I will tell more about the story. He is the incarnation of Yamaraj. So Vidura is an incarnation of Yamaraj. A great personality do expand. They can expand as, like Krishna expand himself. He is Krishna, and he is also Mahavishnu. He is also Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. He is also Lord Nrsingadev. He is also the super soul Kshirodakashayi Vishnu. All at the same time, Krishna can expand unlimitedly, and great soul pure devotee can also expand, but they cannot expand unlimitedly. So Yamaraj, but in that situation, Yamaraj, because it's a post, like you wanted to know that it's a post, and in fact the person we replace, we will hear about the person we replaced. Someone replaced during the time Vidura was on earth, which for the demigod is like he was on earth 100 years, Vidura. So for the demigod time is really not long time. Still, because Yamaraj is very, very busy. In fact, he's the most busy of all the demigod. He's so busy, he cannot stop a minute because there is so many sinners in human race. And because he trials the sinners, he's so busy, more busy than Vayu or Indra or, like all of them. So he needed to be replaced. So during the time he was on earth, which was again 100 years, which, just like maybe a few hours, I don't know, in that, on the realm of the demigods. And he was replaced by someone. So it is a post, to respond to one of your questions. So, but everything is going to be responded here. So, being cursed by Manduka Muni, he was to become a Shudra. The story is narrated as follows. Once upon a time, the state police caught some thieves who had concealed themselves in the hermitage of Manduka Muni. The police constable, as usual, arrested all the thieves and Manduka Muni along with them. The magistrate specifically punished the Muni to death by being pierced with a lance. When he was just to be pierced, the news reached the king, and he at once stopped the act on consideration of his being a great Muni. The king personally begged the Muni's pardon for the mistake of his man, and the saint at once went to Yamaraj, who prescribes the destiny of the living beings. So he was condemned to be pierced, but he wasn't pierced. So that's really important too. But still, how can I be condemned to be pierced when my life is so saintly? So he went to Yamaraj. Yamaraj, being questioned by the Muni, replied that the Muni, in his childhood, pierced an ant with a sharpened straw, and for that reason, he was put into difficulty. The Muni thought it unwise on the part of Yamaraj that he was punished for his childhood innocence, and thus the Muni cursed Yamaraj to become a Shudra. And this Shudra incarnation of Yamaraj was known as Vidura, the Shudra brother of Dhritarashtra and Maharaj Pandu. But this Shudra son of the Kuru dynasty was equally treated by Bhishmadev along with his other nephews. And in due course, Vidura was married with a girl who was also born in the womb of a Shudrani by a Brahmana. Although Vidura did not inherit the property of his father, the brother Bhishmadev, still he was given sufficient state property by Dhritarashtra, the elder brother of Vidura. Vidura was very much attached to his elder brother, and all along he tried to guide him on the right path. During the Frankical War of Kurukshetra, Vidura repeatedly implored his elder brother to do justice to the son of Pandu, but Duryodhana did not like such interference by his uncle, and thus he practically insulted Vidura. This resulted in Vidura's leaving home for pilgrimage, taking instruction from Maitreya. So that's where we are in the Bhagavatam. Like he went on pilgrimage and he met Maitreya. Okay, so that's some of your response. And then there is another verse. There is another verse later on where there is a little bit more details. Let me see. There is another verse where we hear more and more fun thing. So that's text 15 of the same chapter, chapter 13, text 15. As long as Vidura played the part of a Shudra, being cursed by Manduka Muni, Aryama officiated the post of Yamaraj to punish those who committed sinful acts. So that's complete. Like when he was sent by the Muni, cursed by the Muni to take birth as a Shudra. Of course, he took birth in a womb of a Shudra woman, but begetted by Vyasadeva. So as long as Aryama officiated the post of Yamaraj to punish those who committed sinful acts. And so there is a long purport, but it's full of fun things in that purport. So I'm going to read it. Okay? Vidura, born in a womb of a Shudra woman, was forbidden even to be a party of royal heritage, along with his brothers Dhritarashtra and Pandu. Then how could he occupy the post of the preacher to instruct such a learned king and Kshatriyas, Dhritarashtra and Maharaj Yudhishthira? See, even Srila Prabhupada asked question. He trained us to ask question by asking question in his own purport. How come he's a Shudra, and how can he take the role of instruction to his brothers who are like righteous king, like that? The first answer is that even so, it is accepted that he was a Shudra by birth, because he renounced the world for spiritual enlightenment by the authority of Rishi Maitreya, and was thoroughly educated by him in transcendental knowledge. He was quite competent to occupy the post of an acharya, or spiritual preceptor. According to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, anyone who is conversant with the transcendental knowledge or the science of Godhead, be he a Brahman or a Shudra, a householder or a sannyasi, is eligible to become a spiritual master. And so I'm going to jump a little bit. Another reason is that Vidura was not actually a Shudra. So the first reason is that he was educated in transcendental knowledge, so he's an acharya. And the other reason is that he was actually not a Shudra. I love that part. He was to play the part of a so-called Shudra for 100 years, being cursed by Manduka Muni. He was the incarnation of Yamaraj, one of the 12 Mahajan. So Mahajan is those great personalities that we are following. On the level with such exacted personality as Brahma, so he's like personality like Brahma, Narada, Shiva, Kapila, Bhishma, Prahlad, etc. Being a Mahajan, a great Acharya, great Acharya. It is a duty of Yamaraj to preach the cult of devotion to the people of the world as Narada, Brahma, and other Mahajan do. So listen to that. That's the most fun part. But Yamaraj is always busy in his Plutonic kingdom, punishing the doer of sinful act. Yamaraj is deputed by the Lord to a particular planet, some hundreds of thousands of miles away from the planet of Earth, to take away the corrupt soul after death and convict them in accordance with their respective sinful activities. Thus, Yamaraj has very little time to take leave from his responsible office of punishing the wrongdoer. So Yamaraj is one of the most busy because there are so many sinful people, and he doesn't get to have vacation, and he doesn't get to preach. He doesn't get to go out and preach. Like we are all so busy in our lives that we don't get to go out and preach, but Yamaraj made an arrangement. There are more wrongdoers than righteous men. Therefore, Yamaraj has to do more work than other demigods, who are also authorized agents of the Supreme Lord. But he wanted to preach the glories of the Lord. He wanted to preach. And therefore, by the will of the Lord, he was cursed by Manduka Muni to come into the world in the incarnation of Vidura and work very hard as a great devotee. Is that fun? The way stories in the Mahabharata and in the Srimad Bhagavatam, they have story inside stories and different angle. It's like the cause and effect that our little mind and intelligence want to make to things. Like on Friday, we have a group call called Being Healed. And some part of that is going to look at the cause and effect. How the cause and effect of that our little brain want to make. It's so immediate, but we don't see the bigger cause and effect. And the bigger cause and effect, as we understand it, is going to lead to a greater surrender and greater ability to heal ourselves too. So here really is a real cause for Yamaraj to come as Vidura, the son of a Shudra, is not Manduka Muni's curse. Is his desire to preach, to be a devotee of the Lord and to preach devotional service to the world. That's his real cause. And then because he had that desire, then Lord Krishna arranged the whole thing with Manduka Muni. And such a devotee is neither a Shudra nor a Brahman. is transcendental to such a division of mundane society, just as the personality of God had assumed his incarnation as a hog, but is neither a hog nor a Brahma. He is above all mundane creature. So Yamaraj is not a Shudra, is above that, but he takes a form of a Shudra, for the sake of those amazing pastimes. The Lord and his different authorized devotees sometimes have to play the role of many lower creatures to claim the conditioned soul, but both the Lord and his devotees are always in the transcendental position. When Yamaraj was thus incarnated himself as Vidura, his post was officiated by Aryama, one of the many sons of Kashyapa and Aditi. The Adityas are sons of Aditis. Well, okay. So often I think of Srila Prabhupada. I think of Christ and I think of Srila Prabhupada. And how Srila Prabhupada, he really manifested his pastime in the form of an old man. But we know Prabhupada wasn't an old man. Often he will go on japa walk, and he had all young disciples, like, somewhere teenager or their mid-20s. Very, very few were in their late 20s. Practically no one was in their 30s, and they couldn't keep up with Prabhupada. So we know he was, he manifested for his pastime, for a reason that only him and Krishna co-created. That was a form that was the most conducive for his preaching. And I'm thinking of Christ, his form was like early 30s. That was a form that was the most conducive for his preaching. So we responded to a lot of your questions already, Gauda. And then there is one more, 49. I noted that a few days ago, so I don't remember what is there. I think I will just skip on that one. Anyhow, so Mandaka Muni, he made a mistake in his childhood. And because of his mistake in his childhood, we will take a question at the end again. It was beginning and the end. And because he was, because he pierced an insect with a straw in his childhood. It was like there's no free pass for killing animals, even insects. And that in that way was cursed to be pierced by a lance. But remember, he wasn't pierced by a lance. He was just threatened. And then the king completely washed away, and the king accepted him as a great sage. So it is said that in order to help us in our devotional life, we do receive some of our karma, but that karma is not the same than the karma of people who are not devotees. The devotees, when we are not devotees, we are almost like animals. As long as we don't give our life to Krishna, life to God, in devotional life, then we are like Ishvara Sarva Bhutana Mriddeshe Tustati Arjuna Tustati Brahmayam Sarva Bhutani, we turn around and around and around the sun, in different species of life. Yantra Rudani Maya, it's like a machine made of the three modes of material nature. So until we turn to God, until we move towards God, then we are on that machine made of the mode of material nature. And then it's just action, reaction, action, reaction. And people think that they are in control. But in fact, as long as we are away from God, and as long as we are keeping ourselves in ignorance of our real constitutional position, then we are on that machine made of the three modes of material nature. And sometimes good things happen, and sometimes bad things happen, and sometimes medium things happen, and there is nothing we can do about it. And as soon as we surrender to Krishna, like it is said, as soon as we even chant one mantra or one name of Krishna, like layers and layers sinful activity, layers and layers of karma is leaving us. However, it's not that nothing is going to happen in our life, but whatever is happening in our life is 100% conducive for our spiritual life. So Mandakya Muni, because he's a Muni, he didn't really get the reaction for his action, but he did get something. He spent some time in jail, and he was threatened to be pierced by a lance, but of course he wasn't pierced by a lance. Okay, so I think I responded to most of your question, and Gauda, if there is more at the end, you can tell me. And now we are going to go to the juicy question of Dear Govinda Prabhu. Thank you for the juicy question. So how come Vyasadeva, who is a literary incarnation of Krishna, a great devotee of Krishna, had sex and copulated with the maid servant of, he kept, maid servant girlfriend of his brother Pandu. Yuck. Of his brother Vichitragya. Yeah, sorry. No. Oh, hold on. Ambika, he said was kept wife. Okay. It said was kept the person. It said earlier. Hold on. I will go back to that.
Was one of the
yeah, I understand.
sons.
I understand, but still, that's what it says here. We don't know. She was in a palace. Who is she? Hold on, I'm just verifying some information. In the room of the maidservant of Ambika, mother of Maharaj Pandu. Ambika, mother of Maharaj Pandu. So, yeah, exactly. Yeah, Ambika, the mother of Maharaj Pandu. Okay, so how come Vyasadeva, he had a baby with Ambika, Ambika's maidservant, who was the mother of Pandu. How come that happened? So that's the whole story of the Mahabharata, the whole beginning of the Mahabharata. I don't know how far to go, but anyway, in the Mahabharata, there is a great woman that plays a big role in the Mahabharata. Her name is Satyavati. And Satyavati, she didn't have a great birth. In fact, Satyavati, she was the daughter of a fisherman. She was the daughter of a fisherman, and there is nothing said about who her mother was. And because she was the daughter of a fisherman, she smelled like fish. She smelled like fish. And, from a young age, Shudra people, their children work, which will be really, really, really nice to reestablish in our society now. Because young people are forced to go to school, they hate school, they don't do well at school, but now they're forced even to go to college practically. And at the end, they don't know what to do, so they stay in front of the computer and do nothing. Instead of in a young age, if they were learning a trade, like they will be so much happier and more properly situated. So anyway, so Satyavati, she was, doing some work for her father and her mother for the household. And her job was to help people cross the river. She was living next to a river. Her father was a fisherman, so she lived next to a river. And she knew how to maneuver a boat. And so she was taking people across, because in those times, there was no not necessarily bridge in the middle of nowhere. So she would take people across. And one day she took a big sage, paraceremony, across the river. She came paraceremony across the river, and Paraceremony, he told Satyavati, I need to, satisfied you, satisfied me, and copulate with you, basically. And Paraceremony said, and don't worry, don't worry, by you having sex with me, your virginity is going to be kept. You're not going to be touched by anything. But the Muni knew it was his duty. So that connects with your question, because the sages, they are very connected with Krishna, and they are very connected with Super Soul, and they know what needs to happen. So it's the same thing, like a Shudrani who is on a boat, while will a Muni like Paraceremony, who travel all over, will want to have sex with a Shudrani who smell like fish. At the time, a smell was very important. So Paraceremony, he had sex with that person, Satyavati, and from that union came a baby boy who grew up right away. As soon as he came out of his mom, he said, I'm not going to be a burden for you. I just needed to transit somewhere, and I choose you to transit. And the son of Satyavati is Vyasadeva, the great Vyasadeva who took birth out of Satyavati. And Paraceremony, what he did, he blessed Satyavati with an amazing smell. Like she had a fragrance that nobody could resist. Okay, so that's what's happened. She gave birth, and then Vyasadeva went away. He had a mission. He had a mission to compile all the Vedas, to compile the Mahabharata, and he's part of the Mahabharata. And he knows the story because that's the beginning of it. And then on the other hand, there was Maharaj Santanu, and the genealogy of Maharaj Santanu, like is at the beginning of the dawn of creation, but it's escaped me right now. Do you know who is Santanu is coming? Like, anyway. So Maharaj Santanu, on his side, he was a great king. He was an emperor in the same line than the Kurus. And maybe his father was Kuru. Anyway, Maharaj Santanu, he was married. He wanted to marry Ganga Devi, was like a big river, but she's also a personality. And Ganga was so beautiful. He was enchanted by Ganga. And Ganga married him, and he said, and if you marry me, you have to promise me to never question anything I do. Never question anything I do. Maharaj Santanu, he was so in love. He said, whatever you want. And we see how Kshatriyas, Kshatriya can have, they are strong. They're by nature, they are strong, they are powerful, they are full, they are all alpha male. So naturally, they have alpha males, they tend to have attraction towards women. So yeah, that attraction. So he said, yes, just marry me, and I will never question what you do. And so in course of time, they had babies. And Ganga, every time she gave birth to a baby, she went into the Ganges River and she drowned the baby. One after another, she did that 7 times. 7 times or 6 times? I think 7 times, because there is 8 vessels. And then Maharaj Santanu, each time his heart was breaking, because, a Kshatriya also want to have heirs. And so every time he had babies, she would drown them. And then when it came to the 8 babies, he says, stop, why are you doing what you're doing? And then Ganga gave the baby to Maharaj Santanu and she disappeared. She told him, never ask question. If you want me to stay with you, don't ask question. And that baby is Bhishma Dev. Grandfather Bhishma was born of Maharaj Santanu. So we have 2 great personalities here we have Satyavati, who gave birth to Vyasadeva with Parashara. And on the other hand, we have Bhishmadev, who took birth from Maharaj Shantanu and Ganga. But then Maharaj Shantanu, he raised Bhishmadev like a wonderful son. He's so pleased with him. He can see he's going to be the best heir of his kingdom. He's going to be a great king, is his future. And one day he was hunting in the wood and he smelled something. And he got so enchanted by that smell, that fragrance. He looked everywhere, where does fragrance come from? And he was led to Satyavati. And he fell in love with Satyavati. He fell in love, he said, I want her. And remember, he's a Kshatriya and she's a daughter of a fisherman. And he said, I want her. Because that smell was so enchanting. And of course, Parasar Muni knew the whole story. You know, he gave birth to Vyasadeva with incarnation of a literary incarnation of Krishna. So it's all intrigue. And, you know, if you want intrigue, there's so much intrigue in Krishna consciousness. No need to create gossip and intrigue and romance. It's all over. So Maharaj Shantanu fell in love with Satyavati and he wanted to marry her. And he went to the father of Satyavati and said, I want to marry your daughter. And the fisherman, he said, no, you cannot have my daughter because you can only have my daughter. He said, you can only have my daughter if our sons, the son of my daughter becomes a king, heir of the kingdom. And Maharaj Shantanu said, no way, no way. The heir of my kingdom is Bhishmadev. He's so qualified. And Maharaj Shantanu went home and he was so depressed because he was enchanted by Satyavati. He wanted Satyavati and he was so depressed. But because he's a righteous king, even so his senses were all agitated, he decided to sacrifice his senses for the welfare of the citizen to make sure they have the greatest king they can. However, Bhishmadev, he loved his father and he could notice that something is wrong with my dad and he figured it out. And so he went to the Satyavati's father and he said, you know, why are you a fisherman? You're a fisherman. Your daughter can be a queen. What's wrong with you? He said, no, I'm not going to, I will give my daughter to your father only if I know that my grandchildren are going to rule the kingdom. And Bhishmadev said, okay, I'm going to do that. I'm going to renounce the king. I don't want the kingdom. You can keep it. The children of my father with Satyavati. But the fisherman said, I don't believe you. Like when you will have your children, you know, someone else, your wife, or someone in the kingdom will make them rule, and my grandchildren are not going to rule. And at that moment, Bhishmadev made a vow to never marry. And that's why Bhishmadev never married. And that's the grandfather of Bhishma. We know in the Bhagavatam, we see him like he's such a great yogi because he was capable of doing so many great austerities. And so that was how Satyavati got married with Maharaj Shantanu. And there are three sons. One died, and then the older one died, and then the second one was Vichitravirya. And Vichitravirya was impotent. And in fact, he was weird. He was like introverted, like, you know, like kind of to himself, impotent, and not very capable really of anything. But, you know, he was the grandson he was the son of Satyavati. So he was the king, even so he was really incapable. So he couldn't even meet a princess or anything. So Bhishmadev, his father, he went and kidnapped three sister princesses, Ambika, Ambalika, and Amba. Those three. He went to kidnap them and brought them back to Vichyatirvirya. And of course, he tried to have heirs and he couldn't have children. So that was a problem, because this is emperor of the world we are speaking about. And there is a need to have heirs. There is a need to continue the kingdom, to continue to rule, even so Vichyatirvirya wasn't capable, he was still the king. And okay, there is a intrigue that in fact at the end, not the three sisters, one of them, I think it's Amba, she completely fell in love with Bhishmadev. And Bhishmadev, he said, no, I'm not marrying. And even his spiritual master, I think Vyasadev, told him, you should marry her. He said, no, I'm not going to marry. So she decided to renounce. She became a renouncette. She didn't marry Vichyatirvirya because she was in love with Bhishmadev, but she didn't marry Bhishmadev. So it was like two, Ambika and Ambalika were the two wives of Vichyatirvirya. And so he couldn't have babies with it. Satyavati, she said, wait, I have an idea. She said, I have an idea. I have another son. Let me call him, because when he was born, Vyasadeva left, but he told her, if you need me at any time, you can call me. Just think of me and I will come. So he gave her that blessing that she can call him anytime. So Satyavati, she remembered, and I think I respond to your question very well.
Yeah.
Satyavati, she remembered, and she called upon Vyasadeva. And Vyasadeva was like in a Himalayan mountain in a cave. He was meditating. He had nothing to do with the world, but he came because his mom, it was a vessel by which he was appearing. Of course, Vyasadeva is not born, but he appeared through the vessel of Satyavati, and he came and said, what can I do for you? He said, we have a problem. There is no heir to the kingdom, and you need to do something about it. And something about Vyasadeva, I don't know why, but he was born very ugly. He's a beautiful sage, but his trait, it's described that he's very ugly. And and so Vyasadeva said, no problem, I'm going to do the service. If you ask me to do that service, I'm going to do the service. So that's why a great sage, he didn't do it for his sense gratification. It's not that he wanted to have sex with any of those women, those three women, but because his mother asked him, and because, of course, he's a compiler of the Mahabharata, he knows the story of what needs to happen. He did the service of progeny, being a progenitor for Ambika and Ambalika. And Ambalika went first. And Ambalika, she found it was so ugly that she closed her eyes when she copulated with him, and she was, oh God. She didn't see how spiritually advanced Vyasadeva was. She wasn't capable of seeing. She didn't have the eyes to see. This is a great personality. And as a result, she gave birth to the first son of the dynasty that was born, Dhritarashtra. And Dhritarashtra is described as being blind, like physically blind, but also spiritually blind. He was very spiritually blind until Vidura came to help him. And that's where we are in that first canto. And then Ambika, she could see it's a great personality and she was surrendered. However, she turned white when she saw him, and she still did her service with him. And it says that Pandu was born very white. His skin was white. However, Pandu was very, elevated spiritually, and he was chosen as the son of the Pandava. But even so, he was the father of the Pandava, and that's for another episode. He didn't begot the 5 Pandava into his wives. Others did, but that's for another episode. And so there was Ambika. She had a maidservant. It says that when a king will marry a princess, the princess will come with her maidservants, and the princess will kind of also please the king. The maidservant will, will be kept wife of the king, because Kim has a lot of testosterone, so they really need to get it out somehow. So one of the kept wives, she saw Vyasadev and she didn't see how ugly he was. All she saw is that, wow, this great sage. She begged him to have a child. I want to have a child with you. You're such a great sage. You're such a great personality. I want to have a child with you. And that's how Vidura was born. So that's how Vyasadev, the great sage, he became a progenitor for the sake of helping the world, because there was no more heir to the kingdom, like to be emperor of the world and rule the world. And that's how Vyasadev gave birth to 3 sons. Dhritarashtra was blind, physically blind and spiritually blind. Pandu was known as very, very white and was a great sage. And Vidura, who we hear a lot about because now he's learning from Maitreya. But Vidura, from the beginning, we can see in the first canto when he speaks with his brother, and when he speaks different time, he intervened for the Pandava, different time he preached to his family member to surrender to Krishna. So Vidura, from the time he was very young, he was a natural devotee of the Lord. Okay, so we are going to stop here and chant Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. If you like intrigue, romance, epic, if you like gossip, if you like all that, the Srimad Bhagavatam can fulfill all of it, all of it. There's nothing missing. It's Srimad Bhagavatam. I'm reading the 9th canto right now, and in the 9th canto starts with a change of sex, transgender, like a little boy, a little girl was born a little girl, and her father is like, "Oh, I was supposed to have a son," and then Narada Muni, I think. Anyway, I think it's Narada Muni. No, it's a Muni. Maybe not Nada. No, Vashishta. Vashishta Muni change her into a boy. And later on, she's changed again back and forth between a man and a woman and a man and a woman. And that's in the Bhagavatam too. All of it. Nothing's missing in the Bhagavatam. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, thank you. I'm going to read the verse again and then open to question, comments, whatever is happening for you. I think it was really, really fun. I know you are now Vidura due to the cursing of Mandavya Muni, and that formerly you were King Yamaraj, the great controller of living entities after death. You were begotten by the son of Satyavati, Vyasadev, in the kept wife of his brother. Hare Krishna. Now we can open it for question, comments, anything that's going on for you. And it's not so often we go into stories from the Mahabharata, but I'm always excited to go there. Yes, Garuda Prabhu.
Krishna, thank you for all that was so detailed. There's so much happening there. It was really a lot to just get us to Dear Govinda's question and pointing out that particular aspect. It was just like, so there's so much there to it. Yeah, I was just appreciating that, and also I was thinking about the position of Yamaharaj. Am I saying that correct?
Yeah,
Yamaraj?
Maharaj, yeah.
Yes, in relationship to like karma, because I'm like thinking about, okay, like, you know, it's almost kind of like a pastime of karma. At least that's what I'm kind of thinking and feeling is like, you know, it's not really like that role is necessarily even important because of the mechanism of karma, but I'm like seeing like it, I don't know, I'm just kind of like imagining in my mind, like, okay, if karma is the like this mechanism and there's no avoiding it, like, you know, I mean, unless we're transcendent to it, you know, if we're um you know, aligned with our constitutional position and service, then we transcend our karma. But as far as Yamaraj role goes, like, and then looking at like Yamaraj, um, if whoever's playing that role, like maybe sometimes they make mistakes or they're not like, they're had a bad day or something, not using their judgment properly, and then could they go against the actual karma, or is that just like part of the whole pastime of like, it might look like you gave the example that like, he didn't really make the mistake. He had this desire to want to preach. And so this pastime was created where it looked like he was punished for his mistake, but it wasn't actually a mistake. It was a desire that he had. So it was just like, it kind of like twisted my mind around and thinking about the relationship between that and karma. Anyway,
Yeah. Well, it's kind of saying like, well, the light bulb work by themselves. I just, put the switch up and the light come. There is no need for anyone behind that. There's no need. It just happened, I plug my computer and oops, so all the things happen, and there is no one behind it. No, it's not true. There is an engineer. There is people who work. There is the engineer. He has people under him working for him, like Yamaraj has the Yamaduta. And then, of course, karma is there is a system, but at the same time, Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, he said, the intricacy of karma are very, very difficult to understand. So it's like intricate. There is different data. And of course, behind the machine of karma, if you see the machine of karma, it's a machine, action, reaction, and the intricacy of it, there is also, it's person. It's a person. Everything is personal. And we don't want to take the person out. And the person, they are very qualified. Nobody can become Lord Brahma. Nobody can take the post of Yamaraj without being highly qualified. You imagine here to get a job, you need to have a resume, you need to have experience, you need to have an interview, so many things happen just to have a job on earth, which is insignificant and usually redundant. You need to have, it's so complicated of a system. So when it comes to universal management, we can imagine that the qualification system is more subtle and more complete. So, like to become Yamaraj, you need to be very qualified. And the Yamaduta, and yes, like you said, Manduka Muni did perform an act of cruelty in his childhood. He did pierce an insect with a straw, and I remember doing things like that when I was a child, and it's really burdening me. Like things that I did to insects as a child are burdening me. And it's not said that Mandaka Muni is a great sage and a great Muni. It doesn't say that he's a devotee of Krishna. So that's also a very important part, is that as long as we don't surrender to Krishna, we are susceptible to receive any part of our karma, any part of reaction. So it was not like, the Muni felt it was a mistake because he was a Muni. So he was following, the regulation, the rule and regulation of Munis. He was living, a ascetic life, all that. and he was a great Muni. It's not, it doesn't say in the story if he's, like Munis and devotees are not necessarily the same. Sometimes they are made of the same, but sometimes Prabhupada make really big distinction, because sometimes we see Munis in the Bhagavatam who act in a way that's not so saintly. And Prabhupada explained that, you can perform great austerity, you can be a great yogi, a great Muni, but not be surrendered to the Lord. So he did torture insect, and he was condemned to be pierced by a lance. And he was also saved by the king who apologized to him for that condemnation. But because he was a Muni, he could see, okay, nothing happened by chance. The fact that I was condemned to be pierced by a lance means that someone, like that's a reality of my life. And how come could that happen? He was not even pierced, he was condemned to be pierced. But even that seems to the Muni to be unjustified. And that's why he went to Yamaraj. But I don't know the story of that Muni. Maybe by being in contact with Yamaraj, a great devotee of the Lord, that's when he got to enter into devotional service. I don't know the rest of his story, but I know it belonged to him, that there is no mistake, that somewhere he had to go to Yamaraj, and he was powerful enough to speak with Yamaraj. And what's happened to the Muni after that, I don't know, but we can conjecture that, because Yamaraj is one of the Mahajan, and when we are, those Mahajan, they are exemplary in their devotional service. They are like an Acharya. So him being in contact with Yamaraj maybe is what saved him from repetition of birth and death. Even as a Muni, he wasn't freed from birth and death. Maybe he was free from lower birth and death. Maybe he was like that. Yes? So I don't know. I'm conjecturing here. And is there a possibility of mistake? And my understanding is that there is no mistake in the universe, because not even a blade of grass can move without the sanction of the Lord. So even if Yamaraj doesn't have any independence, Yamaraj, none of the demigods act independently. They are depending also on the will of Krishna. So that's true for Yamaraj too. So even if, let's say, Yamaraj could make mistake like we do, I believe that even our mistake are sanctioned by the Lord, because everything is sanctioned by the Lord. That's my response.
Hare Krishna, thank you. Yeah, I was just thinking that, like, if Yamaraj, he's working all the time, and maybe he gets exhausted and makes mistakes because he's working so much. But then I thought, yeah, like, but he's not acting independently. Krishna is sanctioning everything that he does, whether it looks like a mistake or not. And then I appreciate what you were highlighting is, like, everything that we do is, mistakes or not mistakes, it's all sanctioned. And, is it really mistakes then? Is there just judgment of the mistake? I don't know. It's just appreciating you going there.
We don't want to take that as an excuse to misbehave. Our responsibility, Our responsibility is to act in excellence. Our responsibility is to act as devotees, and also understanding that we are not in control. And, like, it's not an excuse. And at the same time, understanding, like, yeah, there is some mistake. Even so, it's a thing. It's also on Friday, I will speak about that. It's like, I may do everything to protect my children, for example. Something can happen that looks like a mistake that is very detrimental to me or to my children. And that's when we need to surrender. That's when we need to surrender. And that's why, like, the more we act in a way that's aligned with our psychophysical nature and with the plan of the Lord, the more when mistake comes, we right away can turn to Krishna and accept that this is the will of providence. Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anything else? Any comment, question, challenges?
Hare
Kim?
Krishna.
Eyeball?
Yes. Very well. And so in a question with Yamaraj that I was a little bit not quite understanding before you gave this class. So is part of his job also, he's got a lot of responsibility and he's helping, I guess us to get the karma we're supposed to get, but is his job also partly that we get the right karma for learning and getting where we're supposed to go? Is he adding to those decisions beyond karma to help us get to the right place through our karma? You know what I'm saying?
Not sure, because there is two types of karma. There is there is pious activities and there are unpious activities, and then pious activity lead us to elevate ourselves, up to the heavenly planet, and unpious activities kind of degrade ourselves down the downward spiral, sinful activities. And then there is transcendental to pious and impious activities, which are devotional activities, the activities that are transcendental to pious and impious. Like Lord Chaitanya has said, pious and impious is like dry stool and wet stool. It's all keep us in a cycle of birth and death. And then there is activities that are specifically helping us elevating ourselves towards God. So my understanding is Yamaraj, it takes, from those purports that it specifically is processing the sinful activities. So it's not like all humans go to Yamaraj for all the reaction of their karma, because there is pious activity, but it's kind of a mix. Like you may have in a Bhagavatam, you may have someone somehow they go down and their next life they go up, because our karma is not linear either. It's not like we're all bad or all good. And so the resultant of our action, pious and unpious, that's why it's the intricacy, it's very complicated to understand karma and to understand the destination. Sometimes we simplify it to make a point, to make it more accessible. It's like analogy, help us to understand something that's really far away, to bring it closer. Sometimes simplifying things, Prabhupada does that a lot, to simplifying them to bring us closer to us. So Yamaraj, my understanding is really, his post is to take care of judging and trying for the sinful activities of human being, because only human being are one that can create karma in a lower planetary system, and in the animal form we purge our karma. It's just purging. And in a heavenly planet we also purge our karma. In a heavenly planet we purge a good karma, good. And in a lower planetary system, in hell, and in a human, in species that are not human, we purge our bad karma. I don't know if I responded to your question, Kim.
I guess I saw karma as like very automatic, like with every action you get a reaction, and it was kind of like you could almost look up in a book, like if you do this, you're going to get this karma, I mean, I know it's not that simple, and then when I was listening to you today about Yamaraj, I was thinking, well, maybe it's not as simple as that. Maybe he takes in other things into account and then like kind of constructs your karma to fit it more, so that you're not just purging it, but you're learning from it. But maybe that's reading too much into what you're saying in a way.
Well, I believe that what you're saying is correct. It's correct. It's like an accumulation. There is so many things. And of course, we can go to the story of Ajamil, beginning of the 6th canto, I believe.
Yeah.
Beginning of the story of Ajamil. For example, Ajamil, he was born in a Brahmin family. And in his childhood and youth, he learned Brahmanical culture. He learned cleanliness, austerity, sacrifice. He learned, he was wearing sacred thread, chanting mantras. So that's the beginning of his life. And then he fell in love again. He fell in love with a prostitute. And from falling in love with a prostitute, that's the beginning of his degradation. He really, really was degraded to the lowest of the lowest. He was stealing in order to maintain the prostitute. He was stealing. He was doing all kind of sinful activity, performing a lot of sinful activity, having sex with her and, all that. So he had many, many children. And when he was 8-year-old, he was on his deathbed. Yeah. And he had a son. And because, in a sense, because of his pious activity in his youth, he named his son Narayan. So, it's like the action and reaction, they're always going on. And they are going on to so many ways, to so many things we do. We think it's like, oh, this is me choosing to name my son Narayan. But is it him choosing? No, it was really due to his past pious activity and, being born in a Brahmin family and all that he got there. So his younger son was named Narayan. And so he was very, very attached, because by that time he was so old, and he was very attached to his younger son, 5-year-old Narayan. And then when he was about to die, he was calling his son, Narayan, 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 come here, my son. And he died. And when he died, the Yamaduta, who are like the servant of Yamaraj, they were right there with their chain, ready to pull the soul with their chain and bring him to hell, because he have performed so many sinful activity. And when they were about to do that, there was that beautiful, dazzling Vishnu Dutas that were there. And the Yamadutas, they saw them and said, wow, they are so beautiful. And then there was a dialogue between the Yamaduta and the Vishnu Dutas. And in that dialogue, I encourage you to read that part of the Bhagavatam. It's very, very interesting. And I think he will respond to a lot of those kind of questions. That in that dialogue between the Vishnu Duta and Yamaduta, they go over that. The Yamaduta say, come on, did you not see this person? All the sinful activity performed, maybe from the time he was in his 20 to 80-year-olds, that's all he did. And the Vishnu Duta say, yes, but he's chanting the name of Narayan. And also in his youth, he was a Brahmana. So, that's some response to your question. It's just like, it's not black and white, definitely not black and white. And in general, the Lord, out of his mercy, out of his compassion, he sees a little thing, even the Agyata Sukriti, even the service we did unknowingly count in that, amalgamation of all the action and reaction and transcendental action. Even the other day, Christy, she came to the spring, and she was supposed to carry. We should have waited for her in the parking lot. Anyway, we were not conscious, but she was carrying she had a big watermelon, and then hummus, and then cheese. That the Mangam were sending to the Harinam in Post Spring because they couldn't come. And then Christy, she was there, and it's a long walk between the parking lot and where we were doing our Harinam. And Christy, she found two beautiful people, and she gave them the watermelon. Watermelon was like Prashadam to carry to the Harinam to feed the devotees, and that we're distributing the holy name of the Lord and prashadam to everyone. So I felt, wow, these people are so fortunate. Because of carrying that watermelon, we don't know what will happen at the time of death for them. Because Krishna, of course, like Yamaraj is not independent, he's acting under the jurisdiction of Krishna. And Krishna's most important desire, most cherished desire, is to bring back the fallen soul back to him. And so that counts so much more than any sinful or pious activity we are doing. Those agyata sukritis, service to Krishna, knowingly or unknowingly. And in that it's not being sectarian. Going to church count. Praying, as long as the praying is not like demigod praying, please give me my bread or give me good education. Where it's very sincere praying of like, I want you, God. I want you to act in my life. I'm ready to surrender to your will. And many Christians pray like that. And that's also devotional service. So yes, it's kind of, a mixed of all our action, reaction, and services. Sukriti, it's explained in the Chaitanya Charitamrita and the Madhya Lila somewhere. It's explained there is different kind of Sukriti. And Sukriti is like good karma, pious activities. Can you open the door? Pious activities or some things that create good result. And it's explained in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that we have different type of Sukriti. One is, some are material, creating different result material, and some are spiritual Sukriti. Thank you for your question. I have someone at the door, and unless there is no unrest, so I'm going to end the class. Kantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Go, Rapinanandi. Can you call him? Thank you.